Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. We're looking at another Toon video today. This channel genuinely confuses me because half the time I'm not even sure they understand what they're talking about. In their previous video that we looked at, they tried to explain how not to write female villains by basically brushing off some of the greatest female villains in media. This time, though, they're talking about the burden of being a hero by analyzing Mr. Incredible, Metro Man, and Invincible. And frankly, guys, I have no idea if this channel even knows what point they're trying to make. I'm serious. Help me out here, guys. Someone tell me what you think they're trying to argue here, because I have no idea. This video is one of the most bizarre, and if they're making the point that I think they are, this is not only stupid, it's detrimental. But let's walk through this together. First, let's change up my avatar to this. There we go. A little superhero thing there. All right, let's get into it.
Metro Man had it all until he vanished.
So I borrowed a prop from a nearby nursing school. Metro Man was finally dead.
Mark Grayson dreamt of heroism until it nearly destroyed him. Bob Parr saved the world, then got stuck in traffic on the way to his 9-to-5. So, is being a hero really worth it, or does it become a burden over time?
Okay, so this question is an odd one. Is being a hero worth it, or does it just create a burden over time? Well, neither of these options are mutually exclusive. Let's take a moment to define a hero for one sec. While the definition can be different for many, I think most would agree that a hero is someone who goes out of their way to help others, even at personal risk or cost. They are the ultimate forms of self-sacrifice, giving of themselves so that others can be safe or happy. So, by that definition alone, there is a definite burden to being a hero. It requires you to put yourself in harm's way. It requires you to make sacrifices. It requires you to put others before yourself. And that's not easy. It is definitely a burden, but is it worth it? Well, I guess that depends on the hero and their outcomes in life. It depends on what that hero values. See, like, if I'm a superhero, right, and let's say that I have a date that night with a girl that I really like, but on my way to the date, I see a kidnapper taking off with a child, so I break off from my date and rush into action and stop the kidnapper. I save the day, I save the kid, but as a result, I'm late for my date and she left. So, was it worth it? Well, that's going to depend on what I value. Do I value that relationship more than the life of the child I saved? Do I find the chance to do right more important than being personally happy? I would think, personally, that the mark of a hero is someone who knows that doing what's right is more important than being self-fulfilled. That's the nature of self-sacrifice. It goes back to the famous Uncle Ben line from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I know y'all have heard that line, it's cliched, I know, but it's not just a throwaway line. It is the hero's mantra. It's the hero's motto. You have power now, and thus you have a responsibility to that power. Do you choose to take responsibility to that power, or do you not? If not, fine. But you're no hero. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Now, hold everything I just talked about right there in the back of your mind. All that, because I guarantee we're going to come back to it. But, all right, let's see what else he has to say.
Animated masterpieces like The Incredibles, Megamind, and Invincible all explore the burden of being a hero in their own way, showing that behind the powers and praise lies a much heavier cost. The first hidden burden starts even before they accept the title of hero. This aspect relates to the fact that most heroes did not have a choice but to be heroes. It was sort of forced on them by fate. I know what you're thinking. An individual who can bench press a skyscraper sounds like the last person who should complain about burdens. However, even if not all heroes are human, they all do feel emotions, especially negative ones.
You. Swearing doesn't make you cool.
Some of these heroes were never asked if they wanted to be heroes in the first place.
Each and every citizen of Metro had something I didn't. A choice.
Or they didn't know the emotional baggage that being a hero came with.
This is all Invincible's fault!
It was simply their destiny. The concept of destiny was a central theme in DreamWorks' 2010 film Megamind.
I
set out to find my destiny.
But at the core of destiny is something more daunting, the idea of fatalism. The belief that whatever it is you end up becoming can never be changed, no matter how hard you try. And we see this with Metro Man. Right from his infancy, it was clear that his destiny was to put a smile on people's faces wherever he went. First, his mom.
Our baby can fly.
Then, his classmates.
Into quiet time in the corner.
And then the whole of Metro City.
Who's your man?
Metro Man did serve a noble cause, and there was nothing wrong with what he was doing, except the fact that he was everything but who he truly wanted to be.
Ever since I can remember, I've always had to be what the city wanted me to be. But what about what I wanted to do?
They don't care, Metro Man. Society simply doesn't care about your feelings. All the world is concerned about is having its protector. Animation or not, this is a phenomenon with both psychological and philosophical explanations. Humans gravitate towards superheroes because they embody our deepest desires for justice, strength, purpose, and the hope that someone will rise when no one else can. Psychologically, they serve as symbolic protectors, filling the gap left by real-world uncertainties, chaos, and moral ambiguity. Philosophically, superheroes represent ideals of good triumphing over evil, of sacrifice for the greater good, and of meaning in suffering, which gives people something to aspire to or believe in. The only problem is we never stop to ask if these guys really wanted to help us or simply how they were feeling about their forced labor.
All right, that was a lot. So your first point is on the destiny of a hero, that they never get to choose. They are individuals with power who did not choose to be heroes, but destiny or society made them heroes. And your example is Metro Man, a superhero who was perfect at everything and destined to be the hero in his world, but eventually grew weary of it and decided to retire, fake his death, and go into hiding to live how he wanted to. All right, let's start with the obvious problem here. Metro Man, as far as I'm concerned, is not a hero. Remember what I said earlier, when you have great power, you also bear a responsibility to it. It's always your choice whether or not you do, and Metro Man decided he didn't want to uphold that responsibility anymore. Even when told there was a great threat he had to return and fight, he still refused. Metro Man isn't the hero of the story. He even asked Megamind to be the hero instead, saying, "A hero will always arrive to defeat evil." But Metro Man doesn't want to be that hero. I would hesitate to call any of who Metro Man is heroic, okay? Now, let's go back to the issue of destiny. If you are destined to help people and be a hero, does that mean you can't choose not to? Look, let me put it in a different way. Can you name a single hero who never had a choice? Name one singular hero who didn't have a choice in the matter to become a hero. In fact, Metro Man proves you can make the choice. He decided he didn't want to be a hero anymore and he quit. But I challenge you, name a hero who never had the option. Being a hero is always about a choice made because it's putting others before yourself. And that isn't something that can be taken from you. That's something you have to decide. To make the personal choice to put others before yourself is choice. It is your decision. It is not something destiny can force on you. It is still a choice.
Anyway, you know who else didn't have much of a choice? Amazon Prime's. When it comes to unfortunate fate and ill luck, Peter Parker is the poster child of this trope. While Invincible's Mark Grayson probably sits in second place, not far behind the webhead.
Are you serious, Grayson?
Invincible has made a lot of dumb decisions that have caused him great pain, but being a hero is not one of them. That's because it was a life he was born into, and he could never run away from it. Even when he tried to, the problems and responsibilities would find their way back to him.
Grab your stuff, Mark. We got a boogie.
What? No. I just got back from space.
Mark was made aware that he was destined for things the average human could only dream of.
And you're going to start to develop superpowers of your own, just like me.
That's the thing about having a dad who's not from Earth and a superhero to boot. It's a perfect example of determinism. We see it all the time. Children often follow in their parents' footsteps, especially when a strong legacy is involved. In Mark Grayson's case, it's textbook genetic determinism. His father's superpowers weren't just passed down, they shaped his destiny. Mark could never live a normal life, no matter how hard he tried. But that's exactly what Bob Parr from Pixar's The Incredibles was begging for.
Man, we jump around a lot, don't we? Okay, so Mark Grayson didn't have a choice because he was born to Omni-Man and thus inherited the superpowers of a Viltrumite. And because his father was already a superhero, he was destined to follow in his father's footsteps. Well, slight problem with that is the legacy of the Viltrumites' heroism or conquest. See, Viltrumites are conquerors and colonizers. They seek out planets to discover, assimilate into, and conquer and add to their empire. If we're really playing with the idea of destiny and genetic determinism, why didn't Mark join his dad when his dad told him to? Why did we have a whole father-son smackdown on over this thing? Shouldn't Mark have just followed in the footsteps of his people? In fact, funny story, in the show, Mark meets several other versions of himself from other timelines, and all of them joined their father or were evil in some way. The OG Mark was not. He did not join his father and made the choice that defied his genetic destiny. So clearly he was not bound by anything. What about Goku, though? He's a Saiyan. Why didn't he go with Raditz, his brother, and join the surviving Saiyans to conquer the world and all other life forms? Again, genetics only provide so much. At the end of the day, it is our decisions that make us heroes, not our destiny.
Look at me when I'm talking to you, Parr!
That man out there, he needs help.
Do not change the subject, Bob!
He didn't want a normal life. It was forced on him, partly due to society now hating superheroes.
It is time for their secret identity to become their only identity.
And the fact that his family wanted a normal life really had him in a tight spot.
Young lady. Act normal, Mom. I want to be normal.
Mr. Incredible's case is interesting because he wants to be a superhero against all odds. He's willing to relive his glory days despite heroism being outlawed.
That was way too close. We are not doing that again.
Even when doing good doesn't require him to use his powers, he's willing to disobey his superiors at work to do it.
Don't tell me about their coverage. Tell me how you're keeping Insuricare in the black. Tell me how that's possible.
But once again, determinism is taking its course, just not in the same way with Invincible. Bob has the genetic disposition to be a full-time hero, but unlike Metro Man's case, society has a bigger role to play. Society doesn't want heroes. Worse, his workplace can't even stand its staff doing right by customers. These external factors are so strong that they force Bob to conform to standards that go against his desires and ideals. This causes serious internal friction between what our heroes want and what's expected of them. But what happens when heroes start to put their own desire over duty?
Isn't that what... Hold on. Okay, I'm confused. What's your argument here? So, your argument is that the burden of a hero is all based on destiny, and you use Metro Man and Invincible as examples. But then you bring up Robert and say society doesn't want him to be a hero, and no one is asking him to be a hero except himself, because that's his choice. He wants to be a hero. That's not destiny. I'm so confused. What argument are you trying to make here? I guess you're saying, okay, here's my guess. I guess what you're saying is heroes are slaves to destiny and society. Metro Man was a slave to what society wanted from him. Invincible was a slave to his genetic lineage. And Bob was a slave to societal conventions and laws, keeping him tied down. Okay. But they still had to make choices that went against that. Because Metro Man faked his death to avoid being a hero. Invincible defied his genetic lineage and fought the Viltrumites. And Bob came out of retirement secretly to try to relive his glory days. So all of these examples are slaves to no one, and if they are, they shattered those chains. Look, I'm confused. I really hope you clarify this, bro, because it really feels like you're saying a whole lot of nothing. You're writing an essay without a thesis statement. I'm confused.
When superheroes find out that it's really not worth it to save the day all the time, they fold their capes and hang their cowls. Look at Titan, for example. The moment he didn't feel like being the hero, he also didn't retire. Instead, he switched sides.
No, you're a hero!
Being a hero is for losers. It's work, work, work.
Is Titan a jerk for having such a notion? Yes. Is he wrong, though? As much as we want yes for an answer, the dude has a point.
Yeah, he does have a point. Being a hero is work. It's not easy. It's self-sacrificing and it's demanding. That's why it's so much easier to be a villain. Villains can afford to be self-serving. They use their power to do as they please, hurt who they want, take what they desire. It is easy to give in to our selfish, sinful nature. It is harder to stand up for the little guy. Are you actually about to say that being a villain isn't a bad choice because it allows you to put aside the burden? Please say you're not going to say that.
This is a movie where our supposed hero, Metro Man, literally called it quits on his duty. It's a good thing that most heroes don't often get the luxury to choose to be one or not, because if it were up to them, the fate of the world is somebody else's business.
I ask you again, name one hero who does not have a choice. The worst thing a hero can ever do is say, not my problem, and walk away. They are no longer heroes, they're cowards, they're self-serving, they're weak. It's why we value real heroes, because they are the ones prepared to make sacrifices for others. They choose the difficult life because they want to, not because they're required to. You know, it's funny, I think the ultimate example of this is Hercules, the Disney version, the Disney animated Hercules. Really think about what he does that makes him a hero. You know, he beats up all these monsters, he fights all these villains, he does all this cool stuff, but when he thinks I'm finally a hero, Zeus still says, you're not there. You're not a true hero yet. And then later, when Hercules has lost his power, he's lost his strength, you know, he still comes back to fight. He still goes out to fight the giant monster, the giant Cyclops destroying everything. And then even when he gets his power back, he doesn't bask in it. He goes and sacrifices himself to save Meg. He literally says, I'll take her place. I'll go into the Sea of Souls and save her. You let her go, I'll take her place. That is self-sacrificing. He's throwing away everything he's ever wanted for her. And that's what turned him into the God of Heroes. And then in the end, when he gets the chance to be the God of Heroes, does he take it? No. In an ironic twist, he decides, I'd rather stay with Meg because I found out that's what I really want. That's where I belong. I belong beside the woman I love. Again, a sacrifice for someone else. That's heroism. That's being a hero. I think that Disney movie kind of laid out heroism better than a lot of modern day stuff, but all right, let's just keep going.
I'm sorry. I really am. I'm done.
This makes you question how long he has been tired of being a hero. Early in the movie, we did hear him say this.
The greatest honor you've given me is letting me serve you.
So he either knew how to put up a facade, or being a hero was so depressing it took away the sparkle in his eyes. But while Metro Man's initial feelings are questionable, there's no doubt Invincible always wanted to be a hero.
And I can do this. It's all I ever wanted for as long as I can remember.
Those were the words of a younger Mark. However, when he actually started being a hero full-time, he got less enthusiastic about things as time progressed. The same cannot be said about Bob Parr.
Living the glory days is better than acting like they didn't happen. Yes!
And this eats away at Bob. What makes it worse is the fact that even when he doesn't need his powers, he's discouraged from doing the right thing. He missed being a hero so much, he didn't mind his son getting in trouble for using them.
Okay. I'm half convinced that this script is AI generated. Let's hear those two sentences again, slowly. Even when he doesn't use his powers, he's discouraged for doing the right thing. Next sentence. He missed being a hero so much he didn't mind his son getting in trouble for using them. What is the them in the second sentence? He missed being a hero so much, he being Bob. Bob missed being a hero so much, Bob didn't mind his son Dash getting in trouble for using them. That sentence makes no sense. What does that mean? What's being said there? The only way that works is if it's tying into the previous sentence, because it says, even when Bob didn't have his powers, he's discouraged for doing the right thing. The problem is the first sentence has to do with Bob being discouraged for doing good, with or without his powers, but the second sentence is on Bob not minding his son using his powers. But how does that tie into Bob being a hero? The first sentence, when you break it down, is Bob is upset because even when he isn't using his powers, he's discouraged for doing the right thing. The second sentence is Bob missed being a hero and doesn't mind his son using his powers. It's structured very poorly. It's structured very badly. What were you trying to say with this? I don't even understand. The better way to say the sentence would have been, Bob misses being a hero so much that he tries to do the right thing, but is even discouraged when he tries to do this. He wants his family to understand and appreciate what it is to be heroes, and that's why he encourages Dash when he uses his powers, even at his own detriment. That would have worked a lot better, but these two sentences are so clunky. They lack flow. Who wrote this? Anyway, back to the point. What was the point again?
They caught you on tape and you still got away with it? Whoa! You must have been booking.
These heroes are forcibly suppressing their desires because they hate the life they live. They're the last people we expect to lose control because they're the backbone of society.
They're forced to repress their desires because they hate the life they live. They're the last people we expect to lose control because they are the backbone of society. Let me read that again. They're forced to repress their desires because they hate the life they live. They're the last people we expect to lose control because they're the backbone of society. How do these two sentences connect at all? Who wrote this script? They're forced to repress their desires because they hate the life they live. Got it. They're repressed. They're angry. They hate their life. Next sentence. They're the last people we expect to lose control. What? Because they're the backbone of society. What are they talking? Who wrote this? Who wrote this? This is so bad.
But what happens when they finally snap? When the burden becomes too much? The cycles you refuse to break keep circling back. Nobody knew this better than Metro Man. He was beyond exhausted from being a hero. He needed a way out. He knew the world would hate him if he stopped being a hero without a proper excuse. So he disappeared, the only plausible way.
That's when I got the brilliant idea to fake my death.
As selfish as it seems, it only proves just how burdening being a hero is. It's such a big deal that the world would only excuse a hero for being absent if they're dead. Besides, the only reason Metro Man could do this was because he never had people he was attached to. No real friends, no significant other, not even a pet.
It may seem selfish. It is selfish. It's 100% selfish of him. That's the point. He's selfish. And as for that last bit about being isolated, how is that the fault of being a hero? That was his choice. He doesn't have to be isolated. He could have easily gotten a wife or friends or a pet. There's no reason he couldn't do that.
Likewise, when Invincible wanted to call it a day on superhero work, he couldn't just go off the grid silently. He had to violently take his freedom.
I will never work for you again. We're done.
Mark's declaration signifies a breaking point, a moment where the pressures of heroism clash with personal values. You can't even blame the kid. He's been through a lot. His dad had traumatized and abused him in more ways than one. Physically,
but try it a little more like this.
Like what?
verbally,
Think, Mark! You'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet!
and he even hurt the people dear to Mark.
I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me.
Even with Cecil, things weren't any easier. Trust was an issue.
Now stop.
Not until you admit to everyone what you've done.
And they often had conflicting opinions.
You killed Angstrom Levy. Should I lock you up too? Throw away the key?
As if his luck couldn't get any worse, there was the occasional beatdown every now and then. The physical pain was on par with the emotional trauma. Mark started to doubt himself, ask questions he never thought he would have to ask.
How can I be a son, a brother, a boyfriend, and a superhero all at the same time?
These are not the words of a hero heading towards their breaking point. This is the confession of one who has passed it, who is in ruins. When people find themselves in such conditions, they start doing things that their sane selves would disapprove of. We see Bob become a terrible husband with the lies he started feeding his family.
Who was that, honey? The, office?
Another conference. Short notice, but you know.
He didn't stop there. He even endangered their lives.
No, he didn't endanger anyone's lives. It was Helen's choice to go to the island. It was the kid's decision to tag along. Helen could have easily just waited for Bob to return and then chastised him then. See, the whole thing is, she didn't know Bob was on a dangerous island, and Bob never called her to come and help him. Helen thought that Bob was having an affair on this private island, and it was Edna who helped her find him. Edna used the tracker in his suit to find him, and so she went to go get him. His actions were reckless, definitely, but it wasn't his fault that Helen came after him. So, you planting the blame on Bob here is inappropriate.
Abort! Abort! There are children aboard! Say again, there are children aboard this... No!
Tied up in custody and witnessing the demise of his family, Bob was torn apart. That was the facial expression of a man who deeply regrets his actions. Evading the police and losing his job were gut punches he could take. But losing his family was where he knew it was too much. It wasn't worth being a hero over. His family was presumed dead, and a supervillain was holding him hostage on a remote island. Was he supposed to call a timeout or something?
Call off the missiles, I'll do anything! Too late.
Maybe he should have appreciated his boring life working in insurance more. Maybe being normal was far from thrilling, but his safety and autonomy were guaranteed.
Okay. Real talk. Are you actually stupid? So, firstly, let's start with that bit about losing his family wasn't worth being a hero over. He lost everything. So is that when he gave up? Did he start down his villain arc here? Did he throw away his morals and decide to live for himself? No. In fact, when given that chance, he couldn't do it. He still chose to be the good guy, to be the hero, to put the lives of others over his own personal satisfaction. He probably would have loved to crush Syndrome or Mirage, but he chose not to. He chose to remain the hero. Even when he lost everything, he still couldn't break his heroism. And then you say, probably the worst thing I can think of. This thing you say is the worst thing I can think of. Maybe it would have been better for him to stay an insurance agent, because even though he's bored and miserable, at least his safety and autonomy were assured. Firstly, the purpose of being a hero is to put yourself in harm's way for others. That's what being a hero is. If you're concerned about your safety, you don't need to be putting yourself in harm's way. And as for his autonomy, what autonomy did he have? By your own admission, he was in a dead-end job with no prospects, no choices. His life was miserable and a dead end. He had a family that was fractured at the root. What autonomy did Bob have? In fact, choosing to become a hero was the first sign of autonomy Bob ever showed after getting married. This is annoying.
Syndrome put it best. It was too late. If life wasn't going to give him a second chance, he would be hunted forever by the fact that he lied to his family and got them killed.
No, finish the quote. Finish Syndrome's quote. He said, too late, 15 years too late. Syndrome was not saying this line in reference to Bob's failures as a husband and father, but as his childhood hero. Ugh.
That's why after he got reunited with them again, he wasn't the same hero.
I'm sorry. This is my fault. I've been a lousy father.
He had hit rock bottom, but does this mean that there's no hope for the hero? Or is there a way out of all this burden? This brings us to the final phase of the burden of being a hero, one that is certainly the most difficult to handle. Metro Man's decision to walk away from his role is one of the most subversive acts in animated storytelling. He doesn't fall victim to a villain. He doesn't die for the cause. He leaves, intentionally, thoughtfully. That precisely is what makes his exit so profound. To the world, he had everything: fame, power, purpose, but none of it belonged to him. His life had been consumed by the image of a savior, an identity so overpowering that his own humanity was quietly erased. The Metro Man the world cheered for was never real. He was a performance, a projection of what society wanted from him. From a psychological standpoint, this taps into a very real human struggle: the erosion of self under the weight of expectation. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for people cast into roles, whether by family, society, or circumstance, authenticity becomes a quiet casualty. For Metro Man, continuing as a hero meant continuing the lie. Therefore, quitting was not cowardice, but self-actualization.
It was both. It was Metro Man putting aside the responsibilities of being a hero for his own sake. Now let me ask you this: is this praiseworthy? Is the film trying to say we should praise Metro Man for what he did? Are we saying that the hero choosing to no longer be a hero is a good thing as long as he's finding his best self? Well, I'm sure that's very comforting to all the people he refused to say. See, here's why he's a coward. I'll explain. Bravery would be to say to the world, guys, I'm tired. I've been your hero for a long time, but I want a break, okay? I want to be myself. I've lived a life that doesn't feel genuine. I want friends. I want connections. I want to pursue my own dreams. So I'm telling you now that today I want to hang up the cape of being Metro Man and be my own person. Sure, people may not like it, but that's bravery. That's honesty. And sometimes telling the truth is the bravest thing you can ever do. What did he do? He faked his death because he was afraid of the consequences. That's cowardice. My God. You do know Metro Man is not supposed to be heralded as a hero, right? You do realize that, right?
Philosophically, his decision challenges the classical notion of the hero as a martyr. Ancient hero myths, from Achilles to Superman, glorify the hero's self-destruction. But Metro Man disrupts that narrative. He asks, if I destroy myself in the process, who am I really helping? In a way, Metro Man is the only character in his story who achieves true freedom not just from villains, but from the identity imposed on him. He steps down for clarity. He sees that heroism, if it's not chosen freely, becomes a form of servitude. So maybe we've had it backward all along. Maybe being a hero isn't about endurance, it's about honesty. Maybe it's not about how much you can carry, but when you decide to put it down. So let's ask, what if the greatest act of heroism is choosing yourself? What if real strength lies not in being everything for everyone, but in being someone for yourself? And if you can't say no to the world's expectations, were you ever free to be a hero in the first place?
This is by far the most singular, idiotic, stupendously inept, and astoundingly evil thing I've heard in this whole video so far. You know what? I haven't done this in a while. We're going to go back, and I'm going to break down all of this point for bloody effing point. Let's do this.
He asks, if I destroy myself in the process, who am I really helping?
Maybe all the people you would have saved through your sacrifice, just a guess.
In a way, Metro Man is the only character in his story who achieves true freedom not just from villains, but from the identity imposed on him. He steps down for clarity. He sees that heroism, if it's not chosen freely, becomes a form of servitude.
Being a hero is always about servitude. You are serving the people you protect. You know, a police officer is charged to protect and serve. Heroes serve the world. They serve the community. They serve the people. This is what it means to put others before yourself. I mean, that's even biblical. Philippians 3:2-4. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. This is a biblical point.
So maybe we've had it backward all along. Maybe being a hero isn't about endurance, it's about honesty.
Yes, of course. It's about honesty. The honesty in faking your own death is truly the most powerful form of truth, isn't it? Yes, be true to yourself by lying to the world. That's honesty.
Maybe it's not about how much you can carry, but when you decide to put it down.
Yes, folks, you heard that right. You heard that right. Being a hero isn't about how much you carry, but about when you decide to let it go. Yes, of course, because all the great heroes are the ones who decide it's no longer their problem. All the truly best heroes in the world, all the greatest heroes in our imagination and lexicon are the ones who said, hey man, F this shit, I'm tired of it, and just drop their responsibilities. Those are the best ones, right?
So let's ask, what if the greatest act of heroism is choosing yourself?
The greatest act of heroism is putting yourself above others. Really? That's not heroism. That's the antithesis of heroism. That's literally a villainous credo.
What if real strength lies not in being everything for everyone, but in being someone for yourself? And if you can't say no to the world's expectations, were you ever free to be a hero in the first place?
Curious, why are you shaming people for putting the needs of others before themselves? I never thought I'd see the day someone actually made the claim, be a real hero. Fuck the world. Guys, that was beyond stupid. That whole bit was beyond stupid, but I had to break it down. All right, carry on.
Whatever your answer might be, not all heroes are fortunate to get the same clarity as Metro Man. Mark Grayson, for one, chooses to stay and suffers. But what sets him apart isn't strength, speed, or flight. It's his refusal to quit, even after the world shatters around him.
I have to get better.
Mark is a teenager thrown into a cosmic horror show disguised as a superhero origin story. He learns that his father, the man he worshipped, is a brutal colonizer, that the fights are real, the pain is permanent, and the cost of doing the right thing is everything: safety, love, even a normal life. And yet, he keeps going. Mark represents grit, the ability to sustain effort and passion over long periods despite repeated failure and trauma. It's the quiet, grinding resilience described by psychologist Angela Duckworth. Not glamorous, not headline-worthy, but absolutely essential. Where others would crumble under the emotional weight, Mark absorbs it. He gets up, again and again. And here lies the philosophical question. Is heroism measured by victory or by endurance? Sisyphus, the tragic figure from Greek mythology, was condemned to push a boulder uphill for eternity. And as philosopher Albert Camus argued, there's defiance, even dignity, in embracing the struggle.
Okay, dude, what kind of point are you trying to make? Didn't you literally just get done saying how respectable it was for Metro Man to give up the struggle, but now you're saying that we should praise Mark for not giving up the struggle? What are you trying to say, bro? What is your point? What are we supposed to take away here? What are we supposed to take away here? It is good and powerful to be honest with yourself. And if that means, stepping away from being a hero, stepping away from your responsibilities as a hero, putting down the responsibility, then you need to do that. That's what being a hero is all about. Then, literally 2 minutes later, Mark is awesome, and the true test of a hero is embracing the struggle. That's what it is. What are you trying to say?
In choosing to push, knowing it will never end, Mark Grayson is that modern Sisyphus. He doesn't pretend things will magically get better. He simply decides they're worth fighting for anyway.
Eve, how?
He's bloodied, heartbroken, and disillusioned, but he keeps showing up. So maybe the real test of a hero is the choice to keep going, long after your strength runs out.
Okay, all right. Real question. Did the whole Metro Man portion of this video just not exist? Was that all made up in my mind? Did you just forget you said all that? Metro Man is a true hero because he reminds us being a hero is about looking out for yourself. It's not about how much you can carry, but knowing when to let it go. Flash 2 minutes later, maybe the true test of a hero is how far we can keep going even after our strength runs out. I don't know what to say. This is ridiculous.
Or, like Bob, the way to overcome the burden is to just do it as a family.
I think Dad has made some excellent progress today.
Superheroes are often portrayed as isolated figures, haunted by responsibility, consumed by purpose, and detached from ordinary life. But Bob and his wife Helen subvert this. They are partners, parents, and people trying to raise a family in a world that asks them to be superhuman at all times.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The world does not ask them to be superhuman all the time. The whole point of the movie was that no one wanted them to be superhuman at all times. You watched the movie, right?
Mommy and I are always a team.
Because Helen evolves into the emotional core of the story, Bob can grow as a hero and a human. Their journey is about redefining what it means to be strong. It's not just the superpowers that save them, but the messiness of family. The yelling, the fear, the sacrifice. It's Dash learning to hold back.
Dash, I'm so proud of you.
Violet finding her confidence.
Away and back!
Jack discovering who he is. And both parents learning to accept that they can't do it alone.
No! The other one! The first one!
First button! Got it! It's getting closer!
Their story speaks to the shift from individual heroism to collective resilience. True strength isn't about control, but connection. Philosopher Hannah Arendt once argued that power arises not from the individual, but from people acting together. That's exactly what the Pars embody. Distributed strength rooted in shared purpose. They fight best when they're being honest, messy, imperfect people. In the end, there are different ways to find a hero's resolve or redefine what it means to be a hero. From Metro Man's choice to walk away, to Mark Grayson's decision to stay and suffer, to the Parr family's embrace of vulnerability and togetherness. Heroism is no longer about invincibility or isolation. It's about agency, resilience, and connection. The real hero is the one who knows when to step back, when to keep going, and when to let others in.
So, in conclusion, heroism is whatever you want it to be. Be a selfish dick who walks away from responsibility, an honorable do-gooder who keeps fighting the good fight, or just a guy and his family helping people on the weekends. You're all heroes. Sticky stars all around. Nope, gonna have to disagree with you hard on that one.
But while it might be burdensome being a hero, being a villain just got a lot harder. Sometimes a villain has to hide his identity only to show up later in an unexpected reveal. Now, if you're wondering how you might write a perfect twist villain reveal, then you should certainly click this video here.
All right, we're done. We're done. Thank God we're done. Okay. I think I can sum up a lot of this video with this clip.
Here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Okay. So, let's break this down. What does it mean to be a hero? I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. When I was a kid, I wanted so bad to be a superhero. I wanted to save lives. I wanted to protect the innocent. I wanted to save the day. As I got older, of course, reality set in. There was no way I was ever going to gain superpowers. I was never going to fly or shoot laser beams or, breathe fire or anything like that. I wasn't going to be a superhero. But as I became a writer, I wanted to create heroes. I wanted to write them. I wanted to tell stories about heroes. And one thing I learned about heroism, one thing I learned about real heroes, is that they take risks. They make sacrifices. They go through hell and high water for other people. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk. All these people, all these heroes had to give up something or continue to give up something to keep saving lives. Sometimes it was financial, sometimes it was their time, sometimes it was their health, sometimes it was their family or friends, sometimes it was their relationships, sometimes it was their dignity. Because being a hero isn't about serving yourself. It's about serving others. One thing I like about the Spider-Man story is when Spider-Man gets his powers, it starts with him serving himself. He's gained spider powers. Well, what does he want to do with that? He wants to beat up Bonesaw in the ring so that he can win a big fight contest and get himself a good money prize so he can buy a car and impress MJ. Selfish, self-centered. And you know what? A lot of people would be like that. A lot of people who get power would want to do that. Look at Titan, the villain from Megamind. That's exactly what happened to him. He got power, started being a hero, but then said, this isn't fun anymore. I want to do things my way. I want my things. I want to do things according to my desires. And then when actually responsibility came Peter's way, Peter said, nope, not doing that. I feel cheated by the fight promoter. I'm not stopping him. I'm letting that mugger go. Only to find out that because he let him go, Uncle Ben died. The man who believed in him more than anyone else, the man who loved him like a father, he died because Peter didn't take action. And that's when Peter learned, when I refuse to take responsibility to my powers, people could get hurt because I didn't do it. In fact, it's funny, a lot of people get on the MCU for their portrayal of Peter Parker, but I like the scene where Tony Stark is just talking to Peter and just asking, why do you do what you do? What gets you out of bed? What makes you do it? And he says, because when you can do the things I do and you don't do something, you might as well have caused the problem, I think that there is a lot of truth in that, and it does tie into the idea of with great power comes great responsibility. Every hero that I've ever written, from Tomaki to Archangel to any of them, they all have a similar vein. They make sacrifices, take risks, both bodily, financially, relationship-wise, all of it, to help others. This video is I'm not entirely sure what point they're trying to make, but if I had to harbor a guess, it's heroism can be defined in numerous ways. Fine, I suppose you could make that argument. There are lots of different ways that heroes function. Like, you can definitely say that Batman functions different than the Punisher. I would definitely agree with that. Some heroes work very differently. But at the end of the day, the fundamental truth of a hero is that they are self-sacrificing. In fact, in My Hero Academia, I think one of the coolest lines is when we see Midoriya using his power for the first time to knock out that giant robot monster. All Might says it best.
That's right. Show who you are. Embody what it means to be a hero. Nothing is nobler than self-sacrifice.
Nothing is nobler than self-sacrifice. Because self-sacrifice is the bread and butter of heroism. That's what it comes down to. So for this whole Metro Man nonsense, where he says Metro Man identifies an aspect of heroism we don't think about, because, sometimes it's about, being true to yourself and just putting yourself first. That's not heroism. That's the antithesis of heroism. I think that was the part that made me the most furious in this video. Say what you want about Invincible. I have issues with the way he talked about Invincible and The Incredibles, but the big issue I took from this was what he said about Metro Man, because I think to myself, you clearly don't know what it takes to be a hero, and I'm baffled that you thought Metro Man was a hero we should be inspired by or look up to. The whole point of looking at Metro Man was to know he's not the hero we thought he was. He was a selfish, self-seeking lout. Man, this was a bad one. This was a bad one. But anyway, guys, that's about all the time I have for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in my next video, okay? I'm off to go save the world. Take care.